The Mind series. Episode 1, Cognitive Reframing. Hey everybody, Adam Science here. Thanks so much for joining me on the first episode of the Mind series. So I hope you had a great holiday. Happy New Year, happy 2021. And we're going to jump right in. So let me review briefly where we've been over the last semester. We started off with the breath series. The whole idea behind the breath series is that through breathing, I can shift my body from the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, which is where I get when I'm stressed out, into, I can deactivate the sympathetic nervous system and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. And that's what calms me down and helps me feel regulated. And through breathing, we can do that. So we went through all kinds of different breathing exercises that we can use to, again, to shift our body out of fight or flight into rest and digest. Well, once we shift our body into rest and digest, our body still carries all that energy, all that stress and tension in our muscles and in our joints and in our organs. So then we shifted into the body series. The body series was really about stretching. How do we get all of that stress out of our body? You know, once we're in rest and digest, we still have to flush the energy out of our body, and stretching is a great way to do that. So we talked about some guided imagery stretching. We did some head to toe stretching. Once we've done the breath, then we've done the body, we actually get into a teachable place. That's where we're more in our frontal lobe and able to think rationally, which takes us into the mind series, which is where we're at now. So through the Mind series, I'm going to be talking about different cognitive strategies that we can implement that will help us deal with stress. And really the cognitive piece of it, in my mind, is really proactive. It's preventive. Breathing is after the fact. Stretching is after the fact. Those go on after we've already kind of escalated. But it's our cognitions that have a great power to keep us from escalating to begin with. So we're going to focus in on that. So today's episode 1, is about the cognitive reframe. We're going to be talking about the cognitive reframe. So what is the cognitive reframe? The cognitive reframe is basically, it's changing the way you look at something so that it causes less stress. Changing the way you look at something so that it causes less stress. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 2020, the pandemic year. That caused a lot of stress. And so the question is there any way that we can change the way we look at 2020 so that it causes less stress? And I'll give you a couple of examples from my life. So 2020 was what it was, right? I mean, frankly, it sucked in many, many ways. But here's the deal. I started thinking about that last spring in March of 2020, because the pandemic broke out. 2 of my kids who were away at college came home to live with us, and we had our kids at home with us. All under one roof from March to about the end of summer. And it was such a rich, special time with our family. And my wife and I knew that there would probably be no other time for the rest of our lives where all of us would be together under the same roof for that long, because they're grown-ups and they're going to get married and they're going to start their own families and all that. Of course, we'll still do vacations, and maybe we'll even spend 2 weeks together. But all of us together under one roof for that long, we knew that it was a special time. And so we made the most out of every meal, out of every activity, out of all the downtime. It was a really, really sweet time for our family. And that would not have happened had it not been for a pandemic. So that's one way that I reframed 2020, the year. I changed the way that I looked at something so that it caused me less stress. Here's the second one. I had released my book, The EQ Intervention, in January of 2020, and I was set to travel and do a lot of teaching around it, and all of that got canceled. And wasn't sure what we were going to do, but what we ended up doing was we ended up building this amazing studio. And I'd never done this studio stuff before. I didn't know what it was like to present on Zoom. I didn't know how to do that. But we built the studio and I learned the technology, and I'd still would much rather be with anyone in person and do the trainings in person. But this has been a great learning experience for me, and it's really allowed us to disseminate information to a really, really wide range of people through synchronous and asynchronous learning. So again, that was another way that we were just changing. I was changing the way that I looked at 2020 so that it caused me less stress. Now, here's the important thing to remember about that. You know, reframing is not toxic positivity. You're not saying, okay, 2020 was great, I'm just going to look at the good things. I'm just going to look. No. You're not. That's denial, right? And that's what toxic positivity is. Toxic positivity is when you are denying the struggle. And that's not what we're doing. We're not denying the struggle. No one's denying that 2020 was difficult, and there were many, many challenging things for all of us about that, financially and relationally and professionally and all along the way, physically. There were tremendous challenges. We're not denying that, but we're saying instead of just being consumed with all the challenge, let's open our mind to the possibility that there were some good things that came out of that. And that allows us not to get sucked into these negative feedback loops where we're just perseverating on what was difficult and challenging. So it's not toxic positivity. You're just asking the question, is it possible that any good could come from that? Any reality-based good? And those things that I named about my family and about building the studio and learning how to do this stuff virtually, those are reality-based good things that happened as a result of that year. So that's it. We've breathed, we've got our body out of fight or flight into rest or digest. We've stretched our body, we've flushed the energy out of our system. We're relaxed, we're calm, we're in a learning place. Once we get to the learning place, then we stop and we say, how can I reframe this stressful situation? How can I look for good in what is in reality-based good, not in a Pollyanna kind of pie in the sky good, but what reality-based good can come out of that? So practice the cognitive reframe. Practice looking at the challenges that you're facing and exploring and finding good that you can focus on in addition to dealing with the actual challenges. So that's it. That's episode 1 of the Mind series. When we come back next time, we'll be talking about yet another cognitive strategy we can use to manage our stress and to stay well.